Here's a riddle. What do you get when you combine the internet, awesome video production programs, and teachers who want to get in as much teaching as possible? The answer is a flipped lesson. And if you're watching this, then you're experiencing one right now. Over the next couple minutes, you're going to find out everything you need to know about completing flipped lessons this year. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn. What is a flipped lesson? A flipped lesson is a teaching method that reverses, or flips, the lecture and practice components of a lesson so that the lecture is viewed outside of class. This series includes 5 sections in each flipped lesson video. The first section of each video, the What section, will explain what you will be learning about. It'll provide a definition that you'll need to know, as well as some different ways to think about and understand the concept. Let's see what this looks like to understand what a flipped lesson is. In a traditional lecture, teachers use class time to introduce or teach a new concept, and then students complete a practice activity to practice what was learned. These practice activities are usually assigned as homework. With the growth of technology, teachers have a few more options as to how class time is spent, and we've discovered that some lectures work really well as flipped lessons. In these cases, teachers record the lecture component of the class, post it to the internet, and provide students with the link to view the lecture outside of class. After the flipped lesson is viewed, teachers will use class time to quickly review what was learned in the flipped lesson and use the rest of the time to complete a practice activity. In Reading for Mastery, abbreviated as RFM, this series of flipped lessons will introduce the 9 reading strategies that we will learn this year, so you will complete 9 more flipped lessons between now and May. For our class, the flipped lesson will consist of 3 parts. You will start by watching a video, just like this one, that will introduce the reading strategy. It will tell you what the strategy is, why it's important, how to use it, give you some examples, as well as recap key points at the end. Next, immediately after watching the video, you will go to an online Google form where you will answer 10 short questions about the strategy. In fact, you'll practice this today after watching this lesson. These 2 parts of the lesson will be completed outside of class. The last part, then, is the practice activity that will be completed during class that week. Even though the practice activity is done in class, it's still actually part of the flipped lesson because you will apply what you learned in the video to an assignment in class. So it's important that you finish these flipped lessons on time because your teacher will expect you to use what you learned. Why are we using flipped lessons? The next section of each video, the Why section, will explain why we are teaching you about that concept. We know that students don't always understand why they should learn something we're studying in class. We've heard it before. Why do I need to know this? When will I ever use this? Well, for one, we want you to know that we hear you when you ask that. We also want you to know that what you're going to be learning in this series of videos is important. Using the strategies we're going to teach you will make you a better reader, whether you're reading for class or for enjoyment. So we're going to take the time to tell you why it's important that you pay attention to the lesson. To see what we mean, take a look at why we're using flipped lessons for this class. You're probably thinking that either way, you, as a student, still end up with homework. And you're right. Whether you're doing a practice activity or watching a flipped lesson, you're going to be doing some work outside of class. But there are plenty of benefits to you with a flipped lesson, so stick with me for a few more minutes to learn a little more. First, flipped lessons typically give you a little bit of control over when you have homework. For our class, you will usually have at least 2 days to watch the video and answer the questions. As a high school student who is probably balancing a lot of different responsibilities, this is a huge benefit to you. When you know you have a flipped lesson, you can plan ahead to complete your assignment if you know you'll be busy a particular day with work for another class, an after-school activity, or other personal plans. Second, you can control the pace of the lecture. We know that everyone learns at different rates. As learners, we understand some ideas quickly and others take a bit longer. With a flipped lesson, you have the freedom to go back and watch a part of the video again if you missed something or need something explained again. Additionally, you will find that all of the videos ask you to participate by answering some questions in your head when we get to the examples. The video will give you a few seconds, but if you want some extra time, you're welcome to pause the video to think about what your answer will be. Third, you can use the video to help answer the questions at the end. In fact, we encourage that. This actually benefits both you and your teacher. If you use the video to help answer all the questions correctly, you will get a high grade on the assignment. On the other end, your teacher will know that you completed the lesson, and more importantly, that you learned the basic information you will need to complete the practice activity in class that week. It's a win-win. Next, using flipped lessons to introduce the reading strategies is actually freeing up time for us to watch videos during class. Instead of listening to the lecture in class, you will watch a video of the reading strategy lecture as a flipped lesson. Then, during class, we will have time to practice that reading strategy using a listening or viewing activity. If you think about it, we're giving you a video as homework so that we have time to watch another video in class instead of listening to us talk about the strategies. You really can't beat that. Most importantly, completing the practice activities in class allows your teacher to be present to answer questions and clarify information. This is probably the greatest benefit to flipped lessons. Think about it. Have you ever left class after learning something new, feeling like you understood it really well, only to go home, open your homework, and feel completely confused by what you were supposed to do? Flipped lessons eliminate that problem. If you have questions about the video lecture, you can ask them when your teacher reviews what was learned. And if you have questions about the practice activity, your teacher will be there to help because you'll be doing the work in class instead of at home. This should help you feel more confident as you practice using the strategies. Last, you will have access to the video links for the rest of the year. This will give you the option to go back and watch them again when reviewing for unit tests or final exams. It would be like studying notes in video form. So even though flipped lessons will mean you have some homework to do, we're confident that the flipped lesson videos won't be all that painful, that you'll enjoy the activities we get to do in class instead, and most importantly, that you'll feel confident using the 9 reading strategies we're going to learn this year. How do we use a flipped lesson? After learning what it is and why it's important, the next section of each video, the How section, is going to provide you with information about how to use the skill you're learning. Here's information about how to use the flipped lesson videos. Get the video link. Your teacher will send the video link to your school email account or post the link to his or her webpage when it's time to introduce the strategy. Your teacher will tell you how he or she will share the video with you. Watch the video. You will need to watch the video outside of class by a certain due date, just like any other assignment. You will need access to the internet, so this gives you a couple options. You can watch the video at home if you have internet access, at a public place, like the library, or even at the school library before school, during your homeroom, or after school during or after RAM. Our school library is open to students on school days from 7:30 a.m. until 4 o'clock p.m. And remember, you will not need to do a flipped lesson every day or even every week. There are only 9 flipped lessons for the reading strategies, so if you do need to make special accommodations to complete the work, it will only happen a few days out of the entire school year. Take the quiz. You will be provided a link to questions about the strategy at the end of the video. You will need to log into your Revis Gmail account to take the quiz, so make sure you have your Gmail address and Gmail password when you watch the flipped lessons. Hopefully it won't take you long to memorize it since you'll use it in many of your classes throughout the year. Review the video. Remember that you can use the video while you're taking the quiz if you forgot or need to clarify anything. We want you to watch the video and do the work yourself to learn the information you need for class. And we'd love nothing more than for you to get 100% on all these quizzes. If you can do that, then you've learned something, and that's the goal. Get the handout. When you return to class after the flipped lesson, your teacher will give you a handout with key points about the strategy you learned in the flipped lesson. So you will have information about each strategy in both video and paper form. What are some examples? After learning how to use the information, the example portion of each video is going to give you an opportunity to practice the skill you just learned about. It'll provide you with sample passages and sample questions and give you an opportunity to try using what you learned. When you see this image pop up, the video will give you about 3 seconds to think about how you would respond before talking through some possible answers. You'll see the image start to fade just before time is up. You don't have to write anything down or turn anything in for this section. Instead, this section is a great time for you to figure out if you really understood everything you just learned. This also gives you a chance to control the pace of the lesson. We know that 3 seconds isn't going to be long enough for everyone to figure out their answer. So feel free to use the pause button when you see this image pop up. Give yourself a little extra time to think about the answer. When you're ready, just click play again to continue watching the video and see some possible answers. Let's practice this by reviewing some of the things you learned today. When your parent or guardian inevitably sees you watching your flipped lesson video and accuses you of watching YouTube videos instead of doing your homework, how will you explain to him or her what a flipped lesson is in your own words? Practice pausing the video here to come up with your answer. I'm sure that many of you had different answers, but hopefully you said something like this. This is a flipped lesson. For RFM, we watch these videos to learn about a new reading strategy for class. Then, during class, we have to do an activity to practice using what we learned. Again, your response could absolutely be different as long as you understand that you're doing some learning outside of class so that we can practice during class. Let's try again. When your parent or guardian still doesn't believe that you're actually doing homework, what can you show them at the end of the video that proves you actually have work to do? Feel free to pause here if you need a few extra seconds. There's really just one right answer this time. You can show them the questions you'll need to complete. These are paired with every video, including the one you're watching right now, so you should have no problem proving that watching the video is actually an assignment. How about just one more? Now that you've almost completed your first flipped lesson, what do you think about doing flipped lessons this year? There is no right or wrong answer here as long as you said something, but we hope that even if you're not super excited about the prospect of homework, you'll at least keep an open mind and give this a try. Recap. The final section of the video, the recap section, is the shortest. It will review some important points that you learned about. We hope this will keep everything fresh as you move on to the questions. Here's a recap of our first flipped lesson. A flipped lesson is when the lecture and practice components of a lesson are reversed or flipped so the student views the lecture outside of class. In this case, the teacher provides the student with a link to a video that will introduce a new topic. The student will have a few days to view the video outside of class. Then, the students will practice using the new skill during class time. For this series, your teacher will provide you the link through your school email address or class website. You must watch the video and answer the questions at the end before the due date. And remember, you can pause the video during the examples section or go back and review a certain part again when you're answering the questions or reviewing for a test. That wraps up our first flipped lesson. If you have any questions about what you just viewed, feel free to watch all or part of the video again or ask your teacher when you return to class. Click the link in the description box below to access a Google form for this lesson.